Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But you know, KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast. Well, let me turn to my guest who is here with me this morning to talk about his latest film. Tom Schillaci is here in our studio. And Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming down to visit with me from the Western Slope. And you're no stranger, though. We were talking about San Juan College. You worked here for a while a few years ago, correct?
Yeah, 2001 to 2005. I helped faculty convert classroom materials to internet courses. It was a great thing. Commencements were always special, seeing people walk across the stage as a result of having some online classes.
That's true, very true, and those online classes continue today. It's amazing kind of how the technology is taken over in the higher education. But you have gotten into the documentary filmmaking genre now, and so this latest film that you are showing tomorrow in Durango is about the Gold King mine spill and some of the things leading up to it. Actually, a lot of the things leading up to it. 100 years worth of history leading up to it, right?
Right. I started this video in 2014, before the spill. And
okay.
It was going to be the little story of Silverton and San Juan County and how they went to Superfund or not. And then the mine spill happened, and it kind of flipped my story upside down.
Right.
And so I thought, well, I can catch the aftermath, and now we're coming up on 4 years of aftermath of the mine spill. I said I can catch the aftermath, but I also need to focus on some history on how we got to the mine spill.
Right. So, and so before 2015 and the Gold King mine spill, which happened August 5th, so we're almost on that anniversary date.
Yes.
Silverton had been going back and forth about becoming a Superfund site. I know the EPA was trying to get them to agree to it so they could put in some more federal resources to try to look at some of these other sites around the town and other mine sites in the mountains there, right?
Yes, I will talk a bit about in 2011, EPA had presented a targeted Superfund to sort of limit treatment to the 4 biggest problem mines in the Silverton area.
They'd already identified these problem mines.
The Animas River Stakeholders Group had been working since the late 1980s, early 1990s.
Okay. And
so they had identified 33 draining mines and maybe 34 or 35 mine sites for solid mine waste.
Interesting. Okay. And so again, and for listeners who are here in San Juan County, why should they care is because we are all downstream of all this stuff that you're talking about that could potentially drain into the tributaries that feed into the Animas River, and that's exactly what happened with the Gold King spill.
Yes. So there was an effort in 2011, or there was an entree for Superfund intervention in 2011. There was no follow-through there, and I talk about that in the video. In 2014, the state of Colorado's Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, with the EPA, also talked to San Juan County, Colorado, and La Plata County, Colorado. And
San Juan County, Colorado is where Silverton is, just so everyone knows.
Yeah. The issue there was degrading water quality and fish habitat were documented, and so La Plata County commissioners were made aware of the worsening condition, and one of the solutions from EPA in the state of Colorado was, if you want continued financial participation from the state of Colorado, needs to be a Superfund designation to open up that pot of money, those resources for longer-term investigation and treatment of the issue.
Okay.
So in 2014, I call it, in my video here, I call it a missed opportunity.
Right. Interesting. Well, we have a couple clips from your video that I want to show to our listeners so they can hear it. If you're watching, of course, you'll certainly get a better experience. So go to our Facebook page or YouTube channel, everyone, so you can check out this video, or at least the parts of it that we're going to play. The whole thing you can see tomorrow night up in Durango, and we'll tell you about that too. But the first clip I want to show is about kind of the history. That problems with the Animas River are nothing new from 2015. You were telling me, I mean, in the film shows that there were spills long before 2015. They may not have looked as orange as this one did, or gotten the attention that this one did, but there's been plenty of documented issues with the Animas over time, correct?
Yes, I talk about 1975. There was a tailings spill just outside of Silverton that turned the river. One newspaper report, and I say in the video, calls it Battleship Gray, all the way like aluminum paint,
right,
all the way down to Farmington. And then in 1978, mining company came up to the bottom of Lake Emma, and heat from the mine had melted the glacial floor of the lake, and the lake came pouring through the mine, and that hit Cement Creek and the Animas, and that turned the river black all the way down to Farmington. So the Gold King spill was the first time it was really that people in Durango and Farmington, Aztec, and Shiprock had really seen that color, that orange color.
Sure, right. But it had turned different colors before. Let's
Yes.
take a look. Let's take a look at the segment here from the documentary, everybody, and see what it shows in the film. Here
Sure.
we go.
So this is a sort of a different mining-related impact, and tailings result from milling. Milling is what you got to do to the ore when it's low-grade ore, and you've got to do that before you send it to the smelter. And the whole idea behind milling, basically, you crush the ore up you pulverize it into a powder, and then you use various forms, either chemical or mechanical, to separate basically the wheat from the chaff. So the wheat is the metals, your gold, your silver, your lead, whatever it is you're looking for, and the chaff is the tailings.
But by 1900, they realized that they had a problem from pollution up above, and apparently you could see the problem coming, because that's what the newspaper report said. And within a couple months, the polluted water had gotten to Durango. Their slimes and mill wastes were being dumped. At that point, it became extremely controversial.
There was a lot of talk about suing and somehow forcing the mills to clean up their act. And the response from Silverton was, you know, we can't do it, because if we do that, we're shutting down. We're shutting down the mills. If we shut down the mills, we shut down the mines, and we're all out of business.
You had a choice. You know, do we shut down the mines and mills that were prosperous up in the upper basin, or do we let them pollute the farms down below?
And so Durango said, oh, okay, well, never mind. We'll go ahead and get our drinking water from somewhere else.
And this was a smart move. Durango moved their water source off the Animas River because of the pollution up to the Florida River. This is an excellent idea. It's gravity flow the whole way instead of having to pump.
And they've done that ever since. It's still the case. That's still the primary drinking water source for Durango.
A little bit from the documentary that we were talking about this morning, and my guest is Tom Schillaci, who has produced and hosted this documentary. And Tom, that's talking a little bit about what we were talking about, right? This ongoing problem of water quality into the Animas River from mining activity north of Durango.
Yes, and I do bring up in the video, in the early part of the video, that Silverton is a volcanic caldera. And so it was happening long before mining was taking place. Red Mountain is called Red Mountain because of the iron that's in the mountain. And snow and rain hit that, and that iron runs off and gets into Mineral Creek, and hits the Animas. So
some of this is naturally occurring.
yes, there is a big it's heavily mineralized, and that is a phrase that we started hearing after the mine spill.
Right.
You know, that this is a heavily mineralized area. If you live downstream, if you live below a volcanic caldera, an extinct volcano, there's going to be some residual dissolved metals in the water. So mining is a part of it, and there are some solutions to mitigate and remove the dissolved metals caused by the mining. When you go into the mountain, you add oxygen.
Right.
The mountain is porous, so water is percolating through the mountain. So oxygen, water, and the residual metal in the rocks, in the ore, in the mountain, cause the chemical reaction for low pH water to come out, and that's what brings the metals out of the mountain into the water. So
Gotcha.
It is right and it is proper to look at mitigating some of these draining mines, keeping in mind that just because a mine is draining doesn't mean it's very acidic. So investigation is needed, but it's time for action now.
Right. And because there's a lot of these sites in the mountains, I mean, I don't know if we today realize just how big of an industry the mining was in and around Silverton and Uray and all those mountain towns 100 years ago. I mean, it was big business, and there was a lot of activity and a lot of tunnels and a lot of mines, and now a lot of potential problems, correct?
Yes. Across the Rocky Mountain West, there are many. There's probably 7,000 abandoned mines.
I was going to say hundreds, but you're saying thousands.
Inactive mines in lots.
Right.
It's a big issue now.
And I don't want to scare people, but I mean, I would assume that some of them could be as explosive as the Gold King was if there's a problem out of those 7,000. I mean, I know they try to keep it not to happen like that, but isn't that a potential?
Gold King Mine had an earthen blockage.
Right.
There are some bulkheads in some of the mines in the San Juan Mountains. Some of those bulkheads, are going to be looked at to see if they are still, or how their integrity is still. Could there be another mine release? Could there be another blowout? I'm going to say yes. I won't be as callous as Hayes Griswold from EPA said in Telluride about a year after the Gold King spill, and said, the river might turn orange. Don't get excited like the people in Durango did.
Oh, dear. Okay.
And so I don't think he's working for EPA anymore.
Maybe not. Interesting. But the issue with the Gold King mine was that after years of this drainage, just natural occurring, happening, as you said, percolating into the mountain, and since they blocked that entrance to the mine, then the water and everything else in the water was building up behind it, and that's kind of why there was so much when it did release so much stuff that came out of that mine, because it had been collecting for years.
Yes, and
it's my understanding, right?
And that's and I raised the question of whose water was that?
Right. Which brings us to our next clip.
Yeah.
So let's watch. Okay, here we are. Again, a piece from the documentary that is being shown tomorrow night, as a matter of fact, up in Durango at the Animas City Theater. It's a free screening.
Yes.
Doors open at 6:30. The show's at 7. And this is Tom's documentary on the lead-up, basically, to the Gold King mine spill of 2015. Whose water is it is the next clip here we want to show you.
The title of my little talk is called It's Complicated. We are looking at the Gold King mine complex. Here is Gold King's 7 level. This 1906 image is the iconic image used in technical reports and books to show that there was water coming out of the Gold King 7 level portal. Some see it differently. Some suggest that the Gold King 7 level was dry back then. But which portal was the author referring to? Some have offered that water was diverted from the North Fork of Cement Creek for either micro-hydropower or to keep dust down when the drills were running. But power was being generated up at Gladstone in 1903, So microhydro probably wasn't the power source up at Gold King 7 level in 1906. A different look suggests that the water in the photo is coming from the mine. Why does this even matter? Notice how the American Tunnel is in the bottom of the same mountain the Gold King 7 level is on.
But in the late 1950s, the old Gold King Tunnel, which is now called the American Tunnel, was extended over to underneath the Sunnyside mine. The old Gold King Tunnel was actually driven in the 1920s. It was driven from Gladstone underneath the Gold King mine, about 700 to 800 vertical feet below the Gold King mine, but it was never connected. They ran out of money. So many years later, in the late 1950s, Standard Metals pushed that American Tunnel back underneath the Sunnyside mine. The American Tunnel is almost 2 miles long, and that got up underneath Lake Emma and the old Sunnyside mine, and they mined all those workings and brought all the material out from there. And it also brought out a lot of all the drainage as well.
In 1996, the first of 3 plugs went into the tunnel, eventually leading to water pooling up in the mountain.
So you got to realize that it's not just the mine workings, but there's this whole porcupine of drill holes out there that water can access. It is just this huge, giant piece of Swiss cheese connected to all these other mines, like the Gold King, in ways we don't know, honestly.
You know, there was always water coming out of the Gold King. You know, you go to Brown Bear and look at, there's some pictures on the wall there, shows number 7 level. There's a good stream coming out of there back in black and white pictures. So that was in the early 1900s.
I think the water's probably coming from Sunnyside. Where else would it be coming from? And, you know, the maps don't show any connection, but the maps are not necessarily accurate.
Got a little bit of the documentary about the lead up to the Gold King mine spill. We are talking with filmmaker Tom Schillaci here on KSJE this morning, and so Tom, that's a little bit more about what we're talking about, right? Is where all this water is coming from, and I guess that's, we all want to place blame when there's a problem that affects communities like the Gold King mine spill, and so that was part of the issue, right? Did the water come from Gold King? Was it Sunnyside? Was it a combination of the two, and all that? Correct?
Right. So this summer, the EPA wants to drill into the American Tunnel between the bulkheads 2 and 3. It's unfortunate that that was not undertaken immediately after the spill to determine if there was any drawdown of the Sunnyside mine pool.
Right. Because now, who knows, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
the time has
three and a half years of draining, if you're just catching it now, you're going to have to wait another year, 2, 3, to see if at all the mine pool inside the mountain has gone down, and did that reduce the drainage coming out of the Gold King 7 level currently.
Interesting. So as we heard that one of the, I assume he's an old miner, talking about there's always water draining out of the Gold King and out of Sunnyside and a lot of other places, and so there was some water treatment happening in the mountains to try to treat some of this stuff before it hit those tributaries that then went into the Animas River, like Mineral Creek and some of these others that we see in the Silverton area. Correct?
Yes.
They realized there was a problem
up at Gladstone. As Sunnyside Gold Corp was shutting down in the early 1990s.
It's now kind of a museum now, isn't it, up there? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Near Silverton?
The mill.
The mill is
a walking tour museum.
Thank you.
And if I could, I'll plug the San Juan Historical Society.
Please do.
They had worked to save the mill, and worked with the state regulators for any mill waste that was there associated with the mill.
Right.
But now it is a walking tour. Someone can give you an overview. It's really a fascinating walk through.
It's true. I've taken it, and it's amazing just to see it. It's kind of like the snapshot in history from when it shut down in the early 90s, I
Yes,
think.
yes.
Because everything's left the way it was.
Sure, coffee cups,
Yeah.
whiteboards,
Yeah.
notebooks.
Old telephones, exactly.
Yeah.
But anyway, I interrupted you. But
going back, there was water treatment in the Gladstone area.
okay. Because of these outflows.
Yeah, when they put the plugs in American Tunnel, it allowed that water treatment system to treat most of Cement Creek in low flow.
Okay.
It was transferred to a third party, and there were some landowner issues, and the operator got evicted from the land, and there was, in 2004, no water treatment. That to me is the one of the big catalysts for water quality going down from 2005 to 2010, enough to where EPA came in 2011 and said this is not good.
Right.
So
that's another clip from your film
Okay.
that we can show about the water quality and the water treatment issue. So let's take a look at that, everyone, as we continue to show a few clips here from the documentary on KSJE.
Well, I think as we've all seen, since the treatment plant at Gladstone was shut down in 2004, water quality has been gradually deteriorating.
And water quality in the early 2000s was probably the best we've seen in 100 years in the Animas Basin. Things were going pretty well. Things were improving. We were moving closer towards meeting those standards. Also, fish and macroinvertebrate studies, macroinvertebrates being the bugs down in the sediments, the bottoms of the streams. We could see that they were improving, and they corresponded quite well with the water quality that we were seeing in the river as well. Things were doing well.
All right, over my shoulder is the old water treatment plant that used to treat the water that was coming out of the American Tunnel, which is right below. That's the orange water right there.
In the early 2000s, late 1990s, as part of that consent decree, after Sunnyside put this bulkhead in, they treated all of Cement Creek because they had extra capacity in that treatment plant.
A little bit more from the documentary here on KSJE, and we're talking with Tom Schillaci, who's the director, producer, idea behind this film, which is being shown tomorrow night up in Durango. And so, Tom, we were talking during that clip a little bit about kind of that leads us to the water quality issues once that water treatment plant is shut down and doesn't restart, and that gets the attention of the EPA because now water quality in the tributaries of the Animas River is decreasing, and so the EPA goes up to start investigating what's causing that, and that's what gets them to the site of the Gold King mine in 2015. Right?
Yeah, it started.
That's kind of a really summarized summary.
Yeah, water quality was going down from 2005 to 2010. In 2011, the EPA presented, like I said, targeted Superfund listing to treat the 4 biggest problem mines there. Remember, as the mountain filled up, new drainage was coming out of the Red and Bonita mine, the Mogul mine, Gold King 7 level, and still continued to drain out of the American Tunnel. So those 4 draining mines were the biggest problems. In 2011 was the first or most recent or 2011 example or introduction of targeted Superfund. EPA did more studies. In 2014, they had more studies on macroinvertebrates, which is the bugs that the fish eat.
Right.
And so fish habitat went down. There was another discussion in 2014. In 2015, EPA wanted to look at the Red and Bonita mine. They put a bulkhead in, but before they closed the valve, They wanted to go up to the Gold King 7 level to investigate the water issue there, with water coming out.
Right.
And they wanted to make some studies on when they close the valve, what might happen to the drainage at the Gold King.
Okay.
The issue with the Gold King was the primary on-site coordinator was away on a planned vacation.
This is around August 5th, 2015,
Around August
right?
15. The number 1 guy was away. The
Okay.
number 2 guy was there with a crew, and I won't go into it too much here. I would say
Well, as I say, the rest is history, right?
yes.
Of what happened?
The rest is history.
We kind of all know what happened
Yes.
in the moments and days and hours after that. So again, the film is going to be shown tomorrow night up in Durango at the Animas City Theater, and that's located on College Drive,
On
correct?
College
Or off-
Drive, near Main and College, next to Cuckoo's Chicken House.
Okay. If you're familiar with Durango, everybody, that's where it is. Doors open at 6:30. The show is at 7. It's a free screening of your film.
Yes, free community screening.
Okay. This is episode 1, and then I do, before we run out of time this morning, want to ask you a little bit about episode 2, which you're working on now. So again, episode 1 kind of leads us through the history up to the spill, and then episode 2 starts with the spill, or what are your plans for episode 2?
I would like to let viewers know what I was doing in 2014, 2015.
Okay.
I'll point them to episode 1 for what the EPA was doing, but what was I doing? And I was working again on Acid Mine Nation, and so I'll let them know what I was up to. The next section would be History Repeats, this time in Technicolor,
Right.
Because there were other spills, but this one was quite colorful.
Yes.
I will add, though, that technical journals in the 1960s and 1970s were all black and white, so if there was an Orange River or very iron-laden, low pH water, lots of iron in the metal or in the water, the technical journals in the 1960s and 70s would not have reflected the orange.
Right.
And so,
as it was described, I guess, in
Right.
print, but the
Right.
pictures wouldn't have shown it.
so
Interesting. Okay.
then there is the Navajo effect. I have been following the issue. I have been to the public meetings. I have hundreds of hours of public meeting footage from Silverton, Durango, Farmington, and Shiprock. And so I'm probably one of a dozen people who's really traveled the watershed. And I can tell you that there's a big difference in the questions and concerns from Farmington and Shiprock on the Navajo Nation. Those are very different concerns than Durango and La Plata County, and those are different concerns than Silverton and San Juan County.
Okay.
And so episode 2 follows the aftermath. There is some good things that resulted from the mine spill, and I'll talk about some innovative technologies that are being developed and tested that may reduce the amount of sludge that's developed when you remove metals from the water.
Right. Okay.
There are more eyes looking at the river. Every time the river changes color, there's, I get texts and I get
Sure.
pictures. Hey, did you see the color of the Animas today?
Right.
And there's been some bad things that have happened in the last 4 years. Some not cool things. And then finally, I'll say Tempest Fugit, years 3 and 4. The last couple of years have shown more light on what is or what is not. And
Okay.
so I'll try to catch you up on the last 4 years.
Interesting. Got you. And we were talking before we came on the air this morning that according to the EPA and all the folks that you have talked to, it appears that the river is back to fairly good health. Is that a reasonable statement? I mean, I know because the questions you said folks were asking from the Farmington Navajo Nation area is farming and irrigation questions, and that ruling seems to be that the water is safe to use for those purposes.
Yes, there are there are folks working. There's a Facebook page called the Gold King Mine Spill Dene Exposure Project,
Okay.
and those are scientists and cultural educators from Arizona University and New Mexico.
Arizona State, New Mexico State.
Arizona State, New Mexico State.
Okay. And they're more independent folks who are looking at the water quality in addition to the EPA and the
Yes.
government folks that we hear from?
Yes, so Dr. Carletta Chief has been very instrumental in coordinating the science piece of it with Kevin Lombard, who's an agricultural
We know Kevin, right?
farmer,
That's right.
and Gaurav Jha from NMSU.
Okay.
And so the data that they have presented at the annual watershed conference here at San Juan College this past June and the June before, their data suggests that the river is safe for irrigation. The Animas River and then San Juan River through Navajo Nation is safe for irrigation. It is the situation where that message doesn't always get out to the res, doesn't always get out to farmers.
Right.
So if there's one thing that people hear in our conversation today, it should be that the San Juan River is safe for irrigation. There is no residual effect from Gold King mine spill, water quality, or sediment in the soil.
Right. And when you say safe, again, you're looking at this data from these independent folks and also the EPA folks. I mean, they're agreeing, are they not?
You know, I don't see EPA working with Gold King Mine Spill Dene Exposure Project. I don't see it.
Right.
And so I know that Navajo Nation EPA, Steve Austin at Navajo Nation EPA, is working with everybody there. And so I think there is still a distrust of
Sure.
EPA. One of the big issues is that EPA Region 8, where the spill happened, ends at the state line.
Right.
You're a different
Two
EPA
different-
region here, and Utah's a different EPA region over there.
And all three have to be on the same page with this incident.
And I can tell you that in the months after the spill, they were not.
Right. I think we saw that.
And then Washington, D.C. adds a whole other aspect
Sure.
to it.
Right. But the word is that the river is safe. And again, it seems maybe Mother Nature played a role in this too, with the big snows that we had this winter and the high flows. I mean, I would think just from dilution. I'm not a scientist, and I haven't done any research, but I would assume that also helps to scour out some of the high flows and things like that can help maybe move some of this stuff along and dilute. I don't know.
Dilution is the solution to pollution.
Okay.
This is that's one of the things
I like
we
that.
hear.
Okay. Is that true?
Yeah, that's
Okay. I would think so.
dilution is the solution to pollution. Now, through the luxury of time, we've seen that the flash floods that occurred last summer after the 416 fire
In the Durango area, that's right.
north of
Right.
Durango, that had turned the river, the Animas River, black with ash and sediment, and that had killed fish, where the Gold King mine spill did not kill fish. And so we have a recent example of far worse damage to the Animas River, the upper Animas stretch above Durango,
Right.
that was
From the
worse. Yeah, from the fire,
mine.
from the flash floods at the 416 fire, that were worse for the river than the Gold King mine spill.
Interesting. All right.
So,
This conversation will continue, I know, and you're going to document it in episode 2.
yes.
As you're working on right now. But episode 1, again, everyone, is going to be shown tomorrow night up in the Animas City Theater. Again, doors open at 6:30. The film will start at 7.
Yes.
And it's a free show. And again, folks can check it out. You're going to be showing this in other places too, I imagine?
World premiere was in Silverton. Durango premiere is tomorrow night. August 8th in Ridgeway. on the other side of Red Mountain.
Okay, right.
So their watershed is different. The Uncompahgre River meets up with the Lower Gunnison, meets up with the Colorado, and goes through Moab that way.
Right.
And they're no stranger to mine waste either. In the
Not in
Uray-
Ridgeway, that's true.
In
And
the
Uray,
Uray-
yeah.
yeah.
Very true.
In fact, I may even fool some people and show some orange water, Red Mountain Creek and the Uncompahgre River, and then tell them, "Oh, that's not the Animas. That's
No.
not Cement Creek."
That's probably, and from yesterday. It's still orange, isn't it? In some of those places.
Oh, yeah.
So that's interesting. Very good. Tom, thanks for coming in this morning. I appreciate the conversation, and the film was fascinating. It's an interesting look at this event that we all remember vividly, unfortunately. So
You're welcome, Scott. I have submitted episode 1 to Four Corners Film Festival that would show in Farmington in September. I will know tomorrow whether there will be a screening in Farmington in September. But I would also work toward showing it in Shiprock and maybe over in Bluff.
okay,
So I do want to be up and down the watershed with these videos.
it's available if folks are interested to see it and want to show it.
I will turn it to public on Vimeo, so go to Vimeo and look for Acid Mine Nation.
Okay, that's how you can find it, everybody. Tom Schillaci, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, you're very welcome. My guest here on KSJE, and I'll be back with more in just a moment, everybody. Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.